Fantastic job, Emerson. Outstanding. It's their first time ever doing that, which is great. Did she do a great job? Yeah? Awesome. Yeah. That's part of what this morning is all about. Faith Family Sunday is about bringing all generations of faith together. We love having the kids upstairs and being a part of what God is doing in the main service, in the main space up here together. And so it's amazing to be able to have her come up and do that with us. Today, Faith Family Sunday is not just about multi-generational ministry. It's also about some good food. And so we're going to have a great time this afternoon after we're done here with our second annual chili cook-off. All right, everybody excited about that? Yeah? Some of you are a little excited. Okay, everybody excited about chili cook-off? Thank you. All right, good. Yes. All right, we're going to crown our second annual champion. Last year's champion is in Maine. All right, so you have no worries of the competition. They're out today, so you got it all. It's wide open field today to be able to win. Nobody's going to be offended if you take their spot because she's not here. All right. Thank you, Michelle, who was our last year's winner, for ceding the field to the rest of us since it was so good last time. And I'm so excited because we have a ringer in this year. We got an out-of-state competition coming in from Dothan, Alabama. We got a good group from Dothan coming in with us. Thank you for being here. They're serving on missions up at NEBC, helping with building dorms and helping out evangelizing, doing a whole bunch of great things in Bennington County. We're so excited to host them here this morning. They're staying at the North Campus here at Faith, and so it's such a privilege and an honor to be able to have them here alongside us this morning. And they even brought some chili. Their daughter, who's serving and attending NEBC, signed them up, so they had to bring something today, and so They did, and the pastor said, go ahead and get the ribbon ready because he's got it locked down, all right? So we're going to find out. We're going to find out today. All right. Today is also the second Sunday for Serve Months, one of our chief values here at Faith. If you see it in the back when you come in, you may just blaze past it, but if you ever happen to look on the back wall when you come in, there's one of our value boards that says service. That's one of our chief values here, and one of the reasons we do it is because we want you to get connected. We want you to grow to be more like Christ here at Faith. And so last week, Shannon did an amazing job getting up here and talking about how to serve on the coffee team, and this week we're highlighting our communication team. The communication team is a blast. I love getting involved with communication. I have a weekly dialogue with Rachel, who's our communication team lead. Will you raise your hand, Rachel? Rachel right here in front. She does an amazing job. And here's the thing, if you like to post, here's what communication is all about at Faith. If you like to post on social media in your personal life, right? If you don't mind speaking in front of others, like Emerson just did a fantastic job for the first time. Maybe you have a really creative side that nobody knows about. The communication team is just especially for you, because besides making announcements on Sunday morning, every social post you see online, which we're going to show you a couple up here, we'll show a couple of these. Every social post you see on our socials through Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those things, they're generated by our communication team. They're scheduled by it. Every flyer that you see posted around town, every promotional material, every title slide for messages that we put up, everything is done here in-house at Faith. And it's not because we have professional people doing it, all right? As much as I love the people getting involved, I love it. As a matter of fact, I saw one of these pictures up this week on social. I'm like, that is an amazing. I thought somebody else did it, and I thought we'd outsourced it somewhere. And Rachel's like, no, Sarah took care of that. I was like, that is amazing. That was one of the best. I love that one, right? And so the amazing talent that God brings and the giftings that God brings into Faith is beautifully expressed through our communication team. So in this age, it's incredibly important because I want to bring it to you on a personal level and understand how important this is. Each of you, if you have come here, and before you showed up, you were on social media or you were on our website, you were online somewhere looking us up. Will you please raise your hand? Before you came here, if you ever looked us up online or on social media, anything, all right? A few. All right, everybody else just showed up randomly. That's great. I appreciate that. Majority of people check us out online, all right? Many of you may be watching us online because of that. Everything that you saw before you showed up was done by people who wanted to bring you closer to Christ. And so the opportunity that you have is to bring someone else like you who are searching online for something or someone or some church to be able to find a home. We say here at Faith, we're a home for the spiritually homeless. To be this place that is going to bring you together with God's people, you started online. And so we want you to be that person who's going to be the next one who shows Christ to someone before they even show up in the space so that they can come in on a Sunday and fit in like you fit in. And so you get that opportunity by joining the communication team and by doing whatever part you fit. It could be making announcements on Sunday. It could be working on socials during the week. It could just be scheduling them. You don't have to create them. Maybe you're not creative, but you can schedule them during the week. There's a whole bunch of things you can get involved in here at Faith on the communication side, and we want to make sure you're doing that. So if that's you, or you feel led to do that, or you just want to kind of dip your toes in and see what does that look like and how do you fit in, then I want you to get connected with Rachel before you leave here today. Matter of fact, we're going to get you connected with her during the break, all right? So when we take a break in just a minute, I want you to go up. Don't trip over each other to get to her so fast, but make sure you go form a kindly line, or you're doing an orderly line to get to her so that you can see her during break to find out how do you fit on this team. Is it here up front? Is it online? Is it behind the scenes? Where are you at to communicate to bring somebody closer to Jesus here at Faith, all right? So we're going to do that. What I also want you to do during break is make sure if you have not signed up for a group yet, they're starting this Wednesday, okay? So there's groups going. We got Intro to Prayer. So if you're like, I don't know how to pray, or I don't know sure if my prayer life is effective, I'm not sure there's different ways of doing this, and I'm not really good at it, and trust me, I've heard that a lot, okay? And so I know it's a common thing. So if you're not alone if you're thinking that. This course is going to be for you. If you want to dive into Genesis chapters 12 through 25, we're going to be in Genesis 32 today. But you want to go back before the story we're in today, then you want to get into that course. It's 8 weeks. We're going to take a week off for Thanksgiving. There's a couple of weeks in December, and then we're off for the winter, all right? So make sure you get in, sign up for those courses before you leave one of those two courses. They're both here at the main campus, both here Wednesday, 6:30. You do not want to miss either one of those places. Please make sure you connect with that before you leave. All right, so what we're going to also do today is we're going to do a quick question, and we're going to play a song as we break. What we do during our break, for those of you who aren't aware, is we get up if you can. I know it's really tight in here, although there are a couple of empty seats. If you need to rearrange yourselves, that's totally fine too. We're going to get up. We're going to meet and greet a little bit this morning. Make sure you talk to somebody you haven't met yet. And if you have problems with asking questions, you don't know what to say to somebody, then you're going to ask them this. Name something or someone reliable in your life. Something or someone reliable in your life. It could be a piece of equipment. It could be a person. I don't know what it is. What's something you can always count on in your life? We're going to talk about it in about 5 minutes. Let's hit the break. We'll be back. Let's listen to some, what do we listen to today? All right. Thank you all for sharing this morning. The first person, as I was thinking through this question that came to my mind, was my wife. I joke around a lot, and by the way, guys, that was your time to shine. So all you husbands failed that test. Just saying, I passed mine. Eric. I joke around a lot about my wife. As many of you know, that's the highlight of my messages is when I joke around about my wife. But today is a positive thing because in reality, my wife is the most kind, the most thoughtful, the most reliable person that I know. How many of you know here that are adults, if you're not a kid here this morning, how many of you know adulting is hard? Yes, you're busy adulting, right? Yes, adulting is hard. Now, adulting as a mom, I wouldn't know personally, but I've seen it in action long enough to know. Adulting as a mom is doubly hard, right? This is incredibly hard work, and I'm just amazed every day, no matter how my wife feels, I can count on her to be up to make sure that everybody is fed, everybody's on track for school, that the house is generally picked up and arranged, that she is showered, right? That she's encouraging somebody in the church, that she's doing thousands of other things I don't even have time to list. She's doing all those things all the time, right? I got sick a little this week. You can hear my throat, and I was down for like a good 12 to 18 hours, and my wife gets sick. It's like, I don't even know she's sick. She just like powers through. I'm like, she says, oh, I've been sick. I'm like, I didn't even know you still did everything. If I'm sick, I'm like, I'm sleeping. I'm sorry. I just got to take a nap, or I got to go out somewhere. I can't handle it. But she's just pushing through. There's a few things in my life that I can count on to be completely reliable. One is Jesus. Two is the sun is going to come up every morning, no matter if I want it to or not. And then my wife is the third most reliable thing in my life. And if you were with us last week, you were starting out on this journey with us as we started our series, Coming Home. As we're hearing a changing of the seasons out here in New England, it's October, so the wind is picking up. It's always fun to see how quickly that changes. People are coming back from camp. People are coming back from sports. They're starting to wind down. There's a couple more weeks for folks. We're getting ready to hibernate in a couple of months, right, Dave? We're getting ready to get the wood ready. Let's hibernate. Everybody ready for hibernation season? I'm so stoked for hibernation season. Nobody else is? All right. All you people in Dothan, Alabama, you don't know. But here's what happens, all right? Come December, the time change is going to happen in couple of weeks. Come that time change when it gets dark here like 4 in the afternoon, all right? it's time to just go to bed. We're just going to stay and read books and put a fire on and just sit by the fire. It's going to be amazing. I'm so looking forward to it. The introvert is like, this is the best time of year. It is just amazing, right, Phil? That's absolutely right. I got all the excuses in the world not to go out. So it's the perfect thing. But we're getting ready for that. And many of us are coming back home to faith. And I don't mean the big capital F faith here at our church, but we're beginning to grow and develop in our relationship with Jesus. And so to get us settled in, to get us moving forward, we're looking at a life of a man called Jacob. And if you missed last week, I encourage you to go back on our YouTube page to check out that full story. But by the time we get to the end, we see Jacob, who's a man with a sketchy past, had begun to see, he began to hear, he began to experience and know and trust God in his life for himself. His relationship with God was new. He was figuring things out. And as he journeyed back home, he's getting to a next phase of that relationship, of that faith life, that faith walk that he had with God. We're going to unpack today in this part of the story how his journey is very much reflective of what our journey of faith looks like. We have newfound confidence of a God who proves himself to be reliable in all things, right? We're like, oh, God has done this for me. That's amazing. I can count on him. And then when that happens, inevitably the next phase in our faith journey is a challenge. The next phase is something comes against us, either from our past or from the future, that challenges us to say, well, maybe he's not as faithful as I think he is. And that brings up our old insecurities and our old habits. And then we begin this period of wrestling out of our faith with God. Is he really who he said he is? And who are we in that process? And so this morning we're going to look at how we are changed by that process and how Jacob is changed by that process by looking at Genesis chapter 32 to see his life and what it means for us today. So if you have a Bible, I encourage you, open it up to Genesis 32 verses 1 through 5. It's going to be up on the screen too, but we're going to start here. And as you're turning there, if you have a physical Bible to turn to, if you have an app, I use my app on my phone every week, feel free to turn it there. As you're doing that, let me give you just a little bit of backstory here. I had to remember last week that Jacob had seen God work mightily in his life. He had spent 20 years being manipulated by his father-in-law, Laban. He had been abused verbally and manipulated in his wages, and he's made peace with his father-in-law, though. He's made peace with that 20 years of his life, and now he's free from that burden, and he's continuing home into that freedom. So he packs up his family, he packs up his possessions, all his animals, and they continue their journey homeward to his old family back in Israel. Now, chapter 32, verses 1 and 2 says this. Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's camp." So he called the name of that place Mahanaim. If he wasn't sure that God was with him after his moment with Laban, he has to be sure God is now, because one night as his tribe sets up camp, Jacob sees this camp of God. Now, we don't understand the context here because we're used to camping in tents. What this reference is to a military camp. Jacob saw the angel armies of God encamped around his tribe as he's going through the desert. He had heard God's call to clearly go home. He had seen God's hand freeing him from Laban, and now he's surrounded by God, protected him on his journey through the desert. And so he moves forward at the break of that new day with confidence, knowing that God has his back, right? It's the beginning of that faith journey that we're in. God has got us. But the closer he gets to home, every day he journeys past that, the more he starts thinking, how's the family that he left back in Israel? How are they doing? How has his dad hung on all these years later that he's been gone, 20 years later? Is his mom still the same loving, caring, sweet provider who always looked after him? And what about his brother? What about Esau? Yeah, Esau. The same guy that he had cheated twice out of his inheritance that would have set Esau up for life. The same one that had threatened to kill him for all that Jacob had done to him. He can't, Jacob knows, just walk back home expecting everything to be okay with a guy he has cheated so many times over and over and over again. He can't expect that to be all right. And he can't spend his life avoiding him. He has to go back home. So he has to deal with these problems. And so a worry starts to form in his mind. He's got to know. He's got to know what's coming so he can make a plan to protect his family and himself. Verses 3 through 5 says this. This is the plan he made, right? Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau, his brother, in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, instructing them. He says, "Thus you shall say to my lord Esau, Thus says your servant, Jacob, I've sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen, I have donkeys, I've got flocks, I've got male servants and female servants, and I've sent them to tell my Lord in order that I may find favor in your sight. Now you might think, he had experienced a mighty move of God in his life. He had been freed from Laban, that he wouldn't be worried about Esau coming up. He knows that God has his back, but the ghost of the past has him shook. So he calls ahead to Esau, and he calls Esau Lord. He says, Esau, you are my Lord. I am your servant. Now, that's not how they left things 20 years ago. 20 years ago, before they left, he had been told by his dad that he would lord over his brother, that he would be the one. His brothers would bow down to him, not the other way around. And so he comes back home, and so he falls into this insecurity, into this thing. He's got, I said, I can need to feign humility here. I got to play like I'm the younger brother, the servant, so I don't get crushed, because he doesn't know how strong Esau is. He could have a whole tribe behind his back. He could be, who knows what Esau's got going on, right? And so he's thinking, I got to feign humility. I've got to mention, hey, I've got some wealth. That way, when he's thinking about it, he can think, well, maybe he'll give me a little bit. Maybe Jacob will come off some of that money he's got, right? And I've got to bow down to my bigger, stronger, older brother so he doesn't wipe the floor with me. That's basically what he's thinking. So he waits after sending the messengers ahead for a few days, and he waits impatiently for them to come back and tell him the good news, that maybe his brother's dead. It could happen 20 years later. He doesn't know. Maybe he doesn't remember why he was angry. 20 years is a long time. Maybe he just forgot. Maybe he's moved on. Maybe he's made peace with it. He doesn't know, right? So he's waiting and waiting and waiting. But Jacob isn't that fortunate. Darkness descends on his day. The messengers return, and verse 6 says this. The messenger returned to Jacob saying, we came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you. And there are 400 men with him. Great. Great, right? Now, this potential worry he had of like, oh, how's this going to go? Now he's in full-blown panic. 400 men? 400? Right? I mean, all he has is a few servants. He's got his sons, which aren't battle-hardened, right? He's got women. He's got livestock. 400 men coming after him and his family. They're going to be massacred. So this man who just had a major victory in his life because of God, in this moment when he hears this threat in his life, isn't full of faith anymore, but he's full of fear. Verse 7 and 8 says, then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he had to do something about it. He had to think, I got to do something. So he devised the people who are with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels, and he puts them in two camps, thinking, if Esau comes to one camp and attacks it, then this other camp can go free. They'll be left to escape, right? So instead of turning to God, instead of remembering what God has done and trusting 400 men, whatever, God, you got my back. He says, no, I got to make a plan, right? I've got to do what I do best. I've got to strategize. I've got to scheme my way out of this trouble. And so the wheels begin to turn, right? I got to make it into two camps. I got to space them out. I've got to make all these plans out here. And he's thinking, man, come on, Jacob, you're smart. You are so smart. There's got to be something else that I can do, right? And as he's racking his brain, thinking how he can get out of this mess, he at least takes a moment to consider what God can do. You know, the God that told him to go back home, right? The God who had protected him so far, the God who had brought him all this way, the God he had seen encamped around him with hundreds of, maybe even thousands of angel armies around him. That same God, he has to come to him now, but instead of faith, he comes in desperation. And he's trying to exercise what little bit of faith he has left, what little bit of trust in that God he has left. He's like, man, I don't know. I got to try something. I'm thinking of everything. Let me at least attempt to go back to this God that I kind of know. So for the first time in his life, we have recorded in the Bible, Jacob prays. He stands alone in the cold, dark desert and says this in verse 9. O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred that I may do good. In other words, God, you commanded me to come back, and now here I am about to die. Where are you? Verse 10, I'm not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love, of all the faithfulness that you've shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now have become two camps. I love this in the Hebrew because the word worthy can also be used for the word younger. All his life, Jacob had been the little brother who lived his life trying to be big. And now he sees himself for what he truly is, the younger, the unworthy. He says in verse 11, please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children. He goes to the age-old standby default. Think about the wife and the kids, right? Think about these poor innocent people, right? How can you let them die? I'm unworthy, but what about them? They're innocent. Please, Jesus, whatever you can do. How ironic it is, though, as he calls out, he says, deliver me from the hand of my brother, when it was his hands that had gripped his brother's heel in the womb. It was his hands that were covered in goat skin to snatch his brother's blessing away. And now he's in his brother's hands, and he's terrified. Verse 12 says, but you said, oh God, here's what you told me. I'll surely do you good. I'll make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. Yeah, you said you do all this, God. So he's thinking, who is greater? Is Esau greater or is God greater? Who should be feared more? Despite 20 years of seeing God's faithfulness played out in his life, Jacob isn't sure anymore. Laban the deceiver was conquered, but what can God do against the wrath of his bigger, stronger, older brother and 400 hardened men? So in the middle of the night, with doubt, with fear welling up in him, he cries out in desperation, hoping that God will answer. And as he strains his eyes to see that camp that he had saw nights before surrounding him, he sees nothing. And as he strains his ear to hear even the whisper on the wind for God's response to this heartfelt call, how could God ignore a man who's humbled himself? You said you'd visit the humbled. How could he do that? And he's listening. God, just respond. I just need to hear you one more time to be sure that you have me. As he calls out, all he hears is the echo of his voice bouncing back off the mountains. He tries to get some sleep. He tries to think, well, if I get rest, I'll be more clear-headed in the morning, but he can't find rest. He tosses, he turns, he thinks of 1,000 options. Instead, if God doesn't answer me, now I really have to double down. I really have to figure out what's going on. How do I get out of this mess? So it's all on me to fix this. So Jacob, the deceiver, the trickster, the schemer, he hatches what he thinks is the winning idea. If he can't appeal to Esau's compassion, he'll bribe him, right? I mean, anybody who loves money and livestock in those days were worth, hundreds and thousands of dollars. So he thinks, man, if I just give him things, he'll be friendly to me. He'll at least receive me and not kill me immediately because I'm worth something to him, right? And so he takes 550 animals and he sends them ahead in waves as gifts to Esau. He says, all right, first wave, you go. And then you're going to wait a little while, then second wave. And you're going to just overwhelm my brother with generosity. And with guile, really, is what he's doing. How can someone be mad at somebody being showered with thousands of dollars worth of gifts, right? This is a great idea, he thinks. But he wants to make sure. So he does a third thing. He's got two camps. He sends the waves ahead, and then he says, all right, you go over the river. Y'all cross this river that's dividing us. I'll stay here, and I have to spend some time in prayer. And if Esau shows up before all this happens, then at least you'll be on the other side protected. So he sends everybody away, and he alone is left in the dark, afraid and alone. As he stands in the dark, he half expects God to show up again in that dream that he's had many times before, in the visions that he's had, hopefully with a message of something like, fear not, or behold, I'm with you and I'll keep you. I mean, he's heard these words before. But as he's standing there, all he hears is the silence. The only sound is the river running behind him. The only sights are the stars above. He's all alone with his fear. All of a sudden, something, or was it someone, just tackles him out of nowhere. And so he hits the ground and he comes up swinging, he comes up grabbing, they're rolling in the dirt. And thankfully, this guy, Jacob, he was no weak man, right? He's been hardened by life. This man had multiple wives, all right? This guy's tough, right? And so he's spent a lifetime shepherding, battling wild animals. He had been protecting his flock. He had broken wild donkeys. He had done all the things to protect. He slept sleepless nights out in the middle of the desert, frozen half to death with nothing but a robe on. He was a hardened man. And so as this guy just blindsides him, tackles him out of the middle of nowhere in the darkest part of the night, right before the dawn, he's like, man, I've got this. But he realizes he doesn't have this. He's wrestling back and forth. They're rolling. They're coming up. And he's met his match. He gets the high ground, right? But the opponent trips him up and brings him back down to his knees. He rolls out of the way just in time for the guy to kick him, and he comes up swinging again, right? Back and forth they go until they're both caked in dust and sweat. And he's thinking, man, whoever this guy is no slouch. And Jacob knew in that moment that he's in the fight of his life. And so as the night lingers on, the fight continues on, as the first rays of dawn begin to streak across the sky, the man suddenly touches Jacob's hip and immediately just pops out of joint. Now, for those of you old like me, you know that can happen if you just got up the wrong way, right, Tom? But Jacob's strong, right? Jacob's a strong man. And so this guy touches him and his hip instantly out of joint. He's like, well, wait a minute. Pain and fear wash over him. And also a bit of a realization, because who could just touch a joint and it pop out of place? And so he begins to think about who this might be. And he might not be wrestling anybody as an ordinary man. He's not wrestling Esau. He's not wrestling a stranger. He's not wrestling someone sent to kill him. Who is this person he's wrestling? And he's thinking, this is no dream. This is no vision. This is no simple conversation like I just cried out to God and he answered me. No, this is a struggle. This is a striving. This is a fight like he's had to fight all his life. But he knows in this moment that there's no cheating his way out of this one. Between his hip and his mind, Jacob understands he's not going to win this fight. But instead of tapping out, what does he do? He holds on in desperation at this point. Now it's not in hopes of victory. Now it's like in times of mastery. I'm going to conquer this person. Now it's like, oh, if I let go, I'm toast. I've got to cling on to everything I have, right? Because now he's thinking, if this isn't a man and this is God, he's heard the stories of Abraham, his grandfather, and the God that met him. He's heard the stories of his father Isaac and that God that met him. And now that same God may be in his grasp. He can't let go. Years before, he had stolen this blessing from his blind father. But here, face to face with God, he clings to him, knowing that the only blessing that he can really get in his life comes from his heavenly Father. All these decades, he's been trying to secure a blessing one way or the other by his own wheeling and dealing, by his heel grabbing, by his backstabbing. And now he comes to the end of himself. As much as he had had a hold on God, he finally realizes that God has a hold on him. Knowing he doesn't deserve it, but bold enough to ask for it anyway, he says, bless me, as he's clinging. What my fathers have, I want. It's not theirs to give, it's yours. He was alone, he was afraid, and he was broken, just where God wanted him to be. Verse 27 says God responds. Remember, he was standing in silence before. God wasn't answering him to his calls of prayer. As the wrestling, the striving, the tussling goes on, he gets to the end of himself, and God said, what is your name? Ooh, what is your name? And he said, Jacob. Now, wait a minute. If this is God, let's ask some simple questions. If this is God, doesn't he know who he's been wrestling with all night? Doesn't he know this is Jacob? Did God get the wrong man, right? Did he just jump on this lonely stranger in the middle of the desert and it's not him? No. God knew who he was wrestling. So why did he ask? To see the condition of Jacob's heart. Jacob answered with, I'm Jacob. You see, names aren't just about who you are, but what you are. God was asking him who he was. Who are you? What are you that I'm wrestling with? What is the condition of your heart? And Jacob comes back, he says, I'm Jacob. I'm the trickster. I'm the supplanter. I'm the heel grabber. I'm the deceiver. The last time his father had asked his name, he lied. This time he confesses. You see, you can fool man, but you can't fool God. And this time he comes clean. He has to before he can receive that blessing that he asked for. Verse 28 says, God responds. Then God says, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. Now see, the blessing that Jacob wants has to start with a change. The blessing that Jacob wants starts with this change, not just of his name, but of a new identity. He goes from the deceiver to Israel, from Jacob to Israel, the one identity that he'll come to fully adopt later. We're going to get to that at the end of this series in week 4. But the name means God fighter or the God who fights for you. Both are going to be true over Jacob's life and the life of the nation that would come from his name. God fighter and the God who fights for them. But Jacob isn't satisfied with just a new name. He wants something more. God, I appreciate the honesty of Jacob. He's desperate. He clings to God. He asks for a blessing. He's bold enough to do this. He says, I need this from you. But he wants more. And so Jacob asks in verse 29, please tell me your name. Why did God ask Jacob his name? Because God wanted Jacob to understand who he was. Why did Jacob ask God God's name? Because Jacob wanted to understand who he was. Who am I serving? I know you're the God of Abraham. I know you're the God of Isaac. I know you're the God who's helped me with Laban, but I don't know you. I want to know you. Who is the God I'm wrestling with? And so he calls out, he says, please tell me your name. But God said, why is it that you ask my name? And then he blessed him. Who or what are you? God would later answer that question that Jacob would ask to Jacob's descendant Moses, but here he simply says, why? And now that seems like a weird, odd, mysterious reply. Like, all right, God, can't you just tell somebody, right? You just made it clear for Jacob. Now he's Israel. He's God fighter. He's the one God fights for. That's amazing. That's a powerful thing of his life, a new identity. Can't you just say who you are? Can't you say what you're going to tell to Moses later? You are the I am. You are the creator of all things. You are the infinite one, the omnipotent one, the all-powerful one, the one that sees and knows. Can't you just tell him? Not here. Why doesn't he? God says, why do you need to ask my name? Why do you need to? Don't you know me? Don't you know who I am? I'm the one who's been chasing you your whole life. I'm the one, even when you didn't see or hear me, I was there when you wrestled your brother in the womb of your mother. I was there when she held you close. When all the rest of the camp wanted to kill you, that she protected you, I was there. I was there when you lied to your brother and then lied to your blind father. I was there at Bethel while you slept and showed you the vision of heaven to earth. I was there at the well when you met the love of your life. I was there in the fields of Laban when he plotted against you and rescued him. I was there at the pillar of stone you erected and swore by me on. And now, here at the break of the dawn of a new day in your life, you have fought against me, but I was fighting for you. And he blessed him. The blessing he so desperately wanted his whole life is given when he is at the end of himself. Verse 31 says, the sun rose. The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping because of his hip. Jacob would go on a limp for the rest of his life, a testimony to his lack of self-sufficiency and to the absolute sufficiency of Yahweh who would fight for him. Jacob's journey is our journey. Coming home in a life of faith means wrestling with God. A faith that isn't wrestled with is one that will fail when times get hard. It's okay to bring your doubts. It's okay to start out on fire and then fall back into bad habits when time gets tough. But what brings about transformation from who you are to who God is calling you to be is what happens when you take all that struggle and striving and you take it to Him. That you do strive, that you do doubt, that you do struggle, but you take it to God and you wrestle with Him as Jacob did. You meet Him alone in the desert in fear and desperation, in doubts, feeling like you're going to be overcome, and you wrestle and wrestle and wrestle, calling out and bringing you to the end of yourself, and there is where God meets you. There is where you find faith. The disciples later with Jesus, they would not go on to be the great men that they were without running away after Jesus' death, without hiding after the resurrection until He came back. They had to know, they had to wrestle with that doubt. And God allowed that process to happen as He allows it for us to happen in our lives, because we find faith, we find salvation, we find real powerful, intimate relationship with God when you begin to wrestle with Him and realize that He is not letting you go, no matter what. Now, for non-believers, you may be in the middle of that struggle. You may be between trying to figure out who God is and who you are. This is a place, this church, this people, is a place where you can struggle alongside others as God reveals who He is and who you are to you. It's not a pretty process. It's not a clean process. It's not an easy process, but a faith worth fighting for is the faith that we're here to uphold at this church. And we're here to fight alongside you as you do it. So maybe you're here and you've been fighting and you're at the end of yourself. The next move you make towards being made new and whole requires the steps that Jacob went through. It requires confession, a realization of who you are, that you're not worthy, because none of us are, that you have fallen short, that you really are the deceiver who has lied to even yourself, as we talked about last week. And the only way to wholeness, the only way to transformation is by confessing through repentance, which is a changing of your heart and your life, and a coming to Him in brokenness, ready to receive what He has for you and not what you've striven for yourself. The hope that we carry, the gospel that we proclaim, the good news, is that each of us have to do that. We all have to admit our failures and flaws to a perfect God. But doing so knowing that because of the life and death and resurrection of Jesus, God's response to our desperation, God's response to our admission of failure and flaws and imperfectness and all the mess that we find ourselves in, His response is going to be like what He gave to Jacob. It's going to be grace, it's going to be mercy, forgiveness, and the giving of a new name. 2 Corinthians 5:17, Paul says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, if you have trusted, believed, have committed your life, have died to yourself, all the things you said you are done and dead. Your identity, your everything that you thought you could be is submitted to Him. And when you're in Christ, it says, we are new creation, that the old has passed away, and behold, the new has come. Let's pray this morning. Maybe you're here and you're that person who's wrestling with God today. And you're coming to the end of yourself, because I pray that that's what it has led you to today, that maybe you didn't even realize it, but you come here this morning and I've been struggling, Pastor. I've been wrestling with things over my life, and I can't explain why. I've had so many doubts, so much confusion. It just doesn't seem like anything's going right. And every time I do something right, it all kind of falls back apart, and I just don't understand. And you realize this morning that God has you in a grapple. That God has you, maybe it feels like in a chokehold. And you think, I got to get out. But God knows God's telling you have to give up. He's calling you to lay down your life and to start a new one with him. And so if that's you, how you do that is, one, recognize that God is already working in your life, that you aren't doing anything, that what you're simply doing is responding to the work that God has already started in your life. You are not here by accident. You are not simply here because someone posted something on social media. You are not here simply because someone invited you. You are here because the living God of the universe, who knew you in the womb, who knew you in your struggles when you were a kid, who knew you when you were wrestling with all the fears and doubt and insecurities as a teenager, who knows that even now and as an adult you're still struggling with things, and you've gone through divorce, you've gone through marital strife, you've gone through broken relationships, you've gone through abuse, you've gone through kids who disrespect you, you have disrespected others, and you're in the middle of this wrestling match, and you know that you can't win. God has been there with you through each step. And today he's brought you here. He's brought you here, not just to a place to feel good. No, he's brought you to the end of yourself, to the place we all have to come to realize that you need to be broken before you can be made new, that you have to die before you can be raised to life. And so you respond to what God is doing by calling back out to him. As Jacob cried out in the desert, as he wrestled, as he gripped and grappled, caked in dust and mud and sweat. And he called out and he said, bless me. In desperation, bless me, God. I can't let go. I need you. Prayer is that desperate call. So if this is you today, you simply say, dear Jesus, I need you. I've come to the end of myself. Who I thought I was is not enough. Who I want to be, what the world tells me to be, the desires that I have in my heart that feel good. But today you're speaking over me. And today you're calling out, what is your name? And I have to confess, God. I have to confess my name. I have to confess my nature. That I'm not the merciful, kind person that I wish I could be. I'm not the perfect person. I don't have it all together. And I come to you and I lay everything I have down because I'm done wrestling with myself. I desire new. I desire you. A relationship better than any person or thing. More reliable than anything in this world. I want you. I need you. And if that's you and you've prayed that prayer, know that God, through Christ, his son, who lived a perfect life, died a perfect death in your place that you deserve, that we all do, and was raised to new life by God, will meet you, is meeting you right here in this moment, in peace, in hope, in joy, in life, over death. Now that's good news, but also means it's the beginning of a journey away from who you were to who God is calling you to be. That requires coming into his church. That requires stepping alongside of people who are on that same faith journey. It's not pretty, it's messy, it's ugly. There's some mistakes we all make, but it's a wrestling with God through it. That whenever we have a great moment like today, we respond and say, yes, I said yes to Jesus. And you know and experience that love and mercy and grace, that when you encounter the hard things, God says, I will give you my peace and my joy, but I'll also give you my people to surround you. And so before you leave for today, if you've prayed that prayer or one like it, I want to make sure you see a few people here in this room. If you know someone that's invited you that's a believer, talk to them. If you need to come speak to me, come speak to me. If you want, there's Chris and Catherine there up front holding some amazing grandkids. They'll talk to you. Carrie in the back will speak to you. Stevie's in the back. He'll talk to you. There's so many people around this room. Before you leave for today, before we get into the great fun chili cook-off competition, go and tell somebody, I said yes to Jesus today. Go and tell somebody that I came to the end of myself today. And let us walk with you as we go forward together.